Hello, hello, explorers. Welcome to our TalkX. We are really excited today with a super guest here joining us from Austin. He just told us that he is right now in Austin, Texas. First of all, I want to welcome you all to this second week of the program. You are the beginning of a really amazing trip. You are probably getting a lot of things from this experience, but at some point you will notice that the most important thing that you can get with you once you finish is the other people you are sharing the program with. So yeah, keep attention to that. Make us match connections and important connections that you can with the rest of the explorers in your groups. Join the activities that we are having along the 12 weeks in order to meet new people, because this is for us the most important thing that you can learn during these 12 weeks. And saying this, I also want to thank you, my team. We are a group of people doing this possible. And I'm Patricia Araque, I'm the executive director, but at the end of the day, today here, I'm just a face, and behind me, there are a lot of people making this possible. So thank you very much to all my team for their amazing work in a daily basis. So Yancey, welcome, welcome. We are really excited about having you today here. I'm doing a short intro because, you know, you are over internet, so everybody can at the end search about such an inspiring trajectory. You are, we think in Explorer that you are one of the most original voices rethinking the future of creativity and entrepreneurship. And that because of that, it's so important that you are here today with us, because a lot of young people is listening to us. Explorers, that Yancey is best known as the co-founder and CEO of Kickstarter. Not only the pioneering platform that opened new doors for millions of creative projects around the world, but you have to know that Kickstarter was also one of the first public benefit corporations in the US. And this is something that we don't talk a lot about, but it's really important. And yeah, you should search about it, because it's really interesting and it's really connected with all the things that we are talking today. Yancey is also the author of This Could Be Our Future, a book that challenges us to expand our definition of value beyond money, and it's also one of the things we are talking about today. He's also developed the dark forest theory of the internet. Also, search about it, read it. It's really interesting. It's a way to understand how we seek safer, more authentic spaces online. Out of these big, huge platforms. And after that, he founded the Bento Society, a community for long-term thinking. And long-term is also a really interesting concept that we should think about. And more recently, and this is the really interesting part of having Yancey today here, he co-founded MetaLabel, a release platform for creative work. And also search about it, try it, because it's an amazing project. And from there, and through this release platform, he's introducing us to the world the idea of artist corporations, A Corps. There's an amazing TED talk over there. I recommend you to watch it, because it's really interesting. It's about vision for how creative people can share ownership, resources, and power in the century ahead. So, Yancey, thank you very much for joining us today, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for conducting this conversation and not your first language. And thank you to everyone listening and bearing with me. So yeah, very happy to be here.
Thank you. So I want to start with Kickstarter. Is what it seems that it makes sense, but not um, at some point. I've read, and you are really generous, and you share everything about your history and how you have developed your entrepreneurship career. You have spoken openly about burnout, about how being the CEO of such a huge project teach you about the costs of building a company, and not only financially, but personally and emotionally. So, what is your advice regarding to this? Because I think it's important for the explorers. They are at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey, and do you think burnout is structural or because of how startups are built, or more of an individual challenge?
I think I would even step back a bit and say that entrepreneurship is a very emotional calling. Um, Entrepreneurship means starting something from nothing. Um, it means creating the confidence in yourself or the drive in yourself to make something out of nothing. And um, and everything about it feels very personal. And where if something good happens, you really feel it. If something bad happens, you feel it 100 times more. And it's the hardest part. It's the hardest part. And the emotions especially come up with how we deal with other people and how we handle things maybe not going as we expected. And I think burnout is an outcome of not managing our emotions correctly. Like I don't think that burnout can come from working too hard, but I think burnout maybe comes more from not changing a situation that's not right, or not confronting the person who's making your life hell, or not, it's about I think it's about being able to find the energy and the agency to do what you believe is right. And when you feel trapped in conditions that you feel are beyond your control, they feel like things you can't change. I think that's when you start to get burnout, because you start to feel helpless, desperate. You don't want to look at it anymore. Your energy levels going down. You're just, and you, like, I think burnout is almost like you trap yourself, or you are protecting yourself, because ultimately your body is saying, I really don't like this experience. And so I'm going to stop giving you, adrenaline or whatever the endorphins. You don't get any more of those because this sucks. And so I think, to me, like, I've never heard uh, an artist talk about work-life balance. Never heard an artist talk about burnout. Maybe sometimes you need to take a break, but like, if you love what you're doing, you're just going to do it. Um, and but there is an emotional side to it that is, it's not just about like getting people pumped or convincing someone to invest. There's an emotional part about like, deep inside of me, do I feel really aligned with the job I'm doing? Does the job I'm supposed to do, the job I am doing, and the person I am, are those good, or is there challenge? And I think that's where it starts. And it's very hard stuff. I'm 46 years old, and like, I'm barely starting to learn how to do this. It's hard stuff. But I think that's really where it happens.
Yeah. And so that was happen in your, at that moment in Kickstarter. You didn't feel aligned with the project or the moment of the project, or
There were a lot of different personalities and forces and things that just made it hard to see how to move forward.
yeah.
And yeah, and were a lot of it were personality conflicts. A lot of it was, you know, there's definitely something that happens of a startup matures and then it becomes a company. And so the difference between being an entrepreneur and being a manager is
The way,
entirely different people, entirely different types of people. And I think I have the capacity to do both. Like I used to be a manager, in normal jobs, but definitely the energy of a project changes if you manage to survive long enough.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, for me it was like, yeah, burnout is how I've normally talked about it, and I think is part of it. But there's just many layers to that. It wasn't just about working too hard. It's not about, it's just about um how well is this working for me, for the organization, for the people around me? Like what, and um I think, again, I guess I just say everything, but like I think the person I am now, I think I could have navigated that situation better than the person I was then.
yeah, because you learned from it, and
I learned.
And
Yeah.
and 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 do you feel, and do you think that it is connected at some point? You said it's different being a founder at the beginning or being a manager or when a company is growing up
Yeah.
with this culture that we have around entrepreneurship, how we consider what success is, this hustle culture. You talk a lot about this. How this narrative around entrepreneurship impact in those emotions and how you manage them as
Yeah.
a CEO when your companies, I mean, is in the traditional path of success. At the end, is
Yeah.
everybody's looking at you and you're having success. Kickstarter is changing things, is profitable, is how all this narrative and how everybody's considering success impacting in how you manage these emotions and how do we should be understanding what are the red flags and paying attention to this.
Many parts to that. Well, one is that it's we have a natural tendency to pay attention to our competitors or people like us, and do a lot of comparison. We do a lot of comparison of ourselves to just headlines. These people raised all this money. You've never heard of them before. You don't know what they do. You have no, but it makes you feel bad. It still makes you
Yeah,
feel bad. It's crazy. It does. It happens to me all the time. All the time. Every AI headline. Oh my God, what am I? I have no interest in that. Why do I feel something? But you still feel something. And so all of those energies, like, spend a lot of energy on those sorts of things, and during my time none of it ever amounted to anything positive. Absolutely zero. Like there are no outcomes from that. No outcomes. And you just create uh you just internally project stories upon yourself that, depending on your persona, either you are like the greatest person in the world who's just like unrecognized genius, or you get really down on yourself. Both are nonsense. Both are nonsense. And so it's a really hard thing. um I think about, so I definitely got caught up in that, while also knowing I not letting myself fully get caught up in that, but I was.
yeah,
And I'll say I am less now. I don't know if that's actually true. Probably I just don't know what websites to go to make myself feel bad. I just haven't found the right anxiety spot yet. um but like, yeah, having Kickstarter succeed, uh, was an amazing experience for all kinds of reasons. Something you believe in is happening, you feel validated, you feel it's exciting, you feel recognized. Like all of those things are wonderful gifts that I wish for every person to receive for the thing that they care about. Because we all need it. It really was helpful to allow me to help me believe in myself, because I didn't really believe in myself. And so that is a wonderful thing. Then I left that. I lost touch with that. I left that, right, and found myself um, unsure who I was, and exploring different things and questions, and a lot of challenging times. And through that, found even greater passion and love for making things than I had in the past. And that's what's happening with Meta Label, with the Dark Forest Collective, with artist corporations, where I feel like I'm getting to be a better version of myself and apply myself to things I care about. And I would say, like, I'm very proud of the work on Meta Label. It hasn't been any kind of great success to date. It's very respectable. It's like innovative. It's like does cool stuff. It's not a commercial success. I don't know if it will be. I don't know. A Corp's exciting start. Who knows? Who knows how it's going to turn out? A lot of things to be optimistic about, but who knows? But what I feel now is that the gift is to have something you're driven about, and that, like, every day I wake up, and my partners, we wake up excited to fight for this future, this vision, these ideas that bring us together. And, like, I'm excited to do that every day. And I feel like my life is contributing to my life force is contributing.
Yeah, something happened, right? So I think we lost Yancey. Yancey,
Oh,
you are
yeah,
here,
just a
right?
second
Yeah,
it
I
froze.
think,
Yes.
yeah, we lost you for 5 seconds.
Yeah. So just like, I think what I come to think is that it's just to have something you're fighting for is the most important thing.
So that's
And
success for you.
yes, yes, because most people do not have that.
Yeah,
Most people do not have that, and that's what makes. And some people aren't driven. Some people don't need that. Some people don't look for that. But a lot of people would love that. A lot of people would love that. It brings such a great clarity and meaning to your life. It makes you feel more powerful in your life, because you are choosing what to do in a way that other people can't even perceive that that's possible. So that is a tremendous gift that I think can bring so much energy into who you are. And so that, I just think that is a thing to be respected and honored.
yeah.
And it's, there are days where I would yell at me for not, I'd be mad at me still because things don't work out right or whatever. You still have those emotions, but there is a big difference between having that chance and not having that chance, or having that thing that drives you and not having the thing that drives you.
And it's so important to listening to you saying this, because at the end of the day, especially for our explorers, for young people, because sometimes world is overwhelming, it's,
Yeah.
and they have access to a lot of information, and I mean, so understanding that you have agency through a creative activity or entrepreneurship to give back to the world and change things at a small, and this is something that I wanted to talk about, because what we feel here in Explorer, knowing and meeting the student, is that they understand value around entrepreneurship in a different way that maybe and other people understand it. And I want to talk about this. I want to make a stop here because I think it's very connected with how we understand success, we at the end we push into our projects. You have written a lot about expanding the definition of value, but at the end of the day, when you are starting up a company, you think a lot about money. Money is central, but I think we need to open more conversations about value, which is completely different than money. And I think that our students, our explorers, need to think more about this. And I would love to listen to you about
Yeah.
this and about
But
how can think about abundance in a different way.
yeah. Yeah. Well,
How can they measure,
well,
these
I'll
kind of
just start
things?
with like, I kind of like, this is a generalization, but I feel like there are maybe uh, two types of startups or businesses. One is opportunistic. There could be no one is doing this for these people. I see the opportunity. I'm going to make that. I assume that opportunistic businesses are financially driven, and the goal is market size and outcome. And that is what causes you to think that's an opportunity, and that's what makes you go into that space. And I generally assume that type of business is wired in that sort of way, and makes sense. Like that is the point of that sort of business. There's another sort of business that is these are words that sound like uh, like they're supposed to be like soft words. I don't mean them that way, but then there's like mission or purpose, or just like you're doing it because you have to do it. You're doing it because you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it because uh it's there when you close your eyes. And it's just going to happen no matter what. Like, you're going to have to try to do this no matter what. And those sorts of businesses, I think, are motivated by an experience they're going to create, or a person they're going to serve, or an outcome they wish to create. And for that person, the challenge is, how do you translate that vision into a financial story for an investor is often the challenge. But I think in those businesses, financial growth is a secondary outcome. It's not the primary outcome. In the business that's like, hey, this neighborhood doesn't have a dry cleaner, that is money is the primary outcome. For someone that says, hey, I think that this should be done differently because I want it done that way, and so I'm going to try to make that, they're looking to create a different experience that they are assuming someone will pay for if they do it correctly. And I think both of those paths are extremely valid and are important to optimize for that. Because if the mission business over indexes on, say, what the investors want, and say create something that uh, removes the heart, which is what would have allowed it to differentiate in the market, then you ultimately like fail to be what it's supposed to be. And so if I think about, as an entrepreneur, value, you know, value is thinking about, well, what am I really doing for someone? How am I really helping that person? And you can help them through time. You can help them through making experiences possible never before. You could help them by saving them money. You could help them by making them more money. Um, or you could help them by, they get to feel closer, or they get to feel safer, and if you look at the internet today, and if you look at the amount of money spent on creator things, and ranging from like a Substack to even like an OnlyFans, that's hundreds of billions of dollars being spent, you know, for other reasons of value than a financial transaction or for looking to get ahead. Those are people because they want to feel closer to someone, because they think someone's funny and they want to be entertained. They want to participate. It's all money that, from a extremely rational economic argument, doesn't make sense. But yet it is so clearly the future. And so I think that we're just going to keep finding that the products, the brands, the people that people believe in the most are ones who, aren't acting like a giant advertisement all the time, and who aren't just about enriching themselves, and that's a secondary, that's what people paying you is what happens if you make something that's really helpful. And when you get into the investor world, it is a very different type of conversation, because it depends on what type of investor you're talking to. But if there's someone that's normally investing in traditional businesses, or, they have a family connection and they're normally doing stocks and bonds and, very traditional sorts of things, that it's going to be a harder argument for them. And maybe they're going to take a leap of faith on you because they know you or something like that. So it's definitely more difficult. Um, but it has, the allure of the internet is just the scale of, like,
Yeah.
if you get it right, it could be, within weeks, thousands of people doing it, within a month, tens of thousands, suddenly it's like unbelievable what can occur. Um, but yeah, I think that, there's when a project is born, its soul is made with it. And the soul comes from who those people were, what was happening at that time. There's a whole family history that goes into of the founders and the conditions of the founding moment that go into that project forevermore.
Yeah.
And, a lot of what you have to do and what you learn as an entrepreneur is even like, what does the soul of this need? There have been moments in MetaLabel where things have been very hard and difficult. And one of my co-founders said at one point, he said, I think this is hard because MetaLabel doesn't want us to do it. And when he said it, I was like, that is 100% correct.
Yeah.
It is against its spirit. And so, yeah, we can't do that. And so there's it's hard. Like, there's a way that, like, I think about my projects internally, and then maybe the way I would talk about them to an investor, an outsider, that are very different conversations.
Yeah.
But But there's no doubt that, like, when you are aligned with the truth of your thing, like, it all works better. And when you're not aligned, nothing works, and you can work so hard and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And it's awful.
It's true. I agree. And and it can be really overwhelming. I mean, especially if you are at the beginning of your entrepreneurial path, because you are pushing hard and things don't work. And when do you knowing when it's time to give up is, I think, is one of the most difficult parts of this.
Yeah.
That is something that you have to learn at the end. So, Yancey, we are almost, the first half an hour of this conversation, we're having 45 minutes. And I want to ask you some things that explorers are leaving in the chat, in Twitch. But before going there, because they are really interesting questions, and considering that most of our students are at the beginning of everything, how do you think that the mindset of collective, approaching business from a collective perspective can help them? Because this is something that they don't think a lot about. Sometimes they think that they are alone in this, is his, her, their project, and it's a fail if you can do this alone, but or you don't have the resources, and we think about resources in terms of money, and we forget a lot about how collectiveness is, how powerful it can be. So I would like, considering what you do in Meta Label, and how A Corp is trying to push this approach
Hmm.
to create a project, your
Yeah.
vision about collective approach to entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Well, just to say, like, I don't think I really became an entrepreneur till I was 30. In my 20s had jobs and did a lot of side projects, made a lot of projects with friends, and projects is a good way to learn. And and now I look at my life and I see that everything I've ever done is all there's an obvious narrative, but that while living that way, I never felt that. And and I after Kickstarter, I began to be a solo creator, writing a book, running a community, and having that individual success. And I found the same feelings I had as a CEO of being alone and isolated, those things came back again. And I realized that I personally did not enjoy being at the top of this hierarchy, and that what I wished for was peers. And if I thought to the early stages of my projects, where it's a group of people figuring something out together, sitting around a table, like easily the most fun part, easily. And yeah, you get better that way. Obviously, you get better that way. And when I started Meta Label, I ended up having 7 co-founders. I just made everyone who joined in the first year like a co-founder because I'm like, we don't know who we are yet. So like you're here. So now, yeah, you get to be a part of this. But it's you have to be able to share your experience with other people is very helpful. Uh, we all have things we're good at and things we're not good at. And on a lot of in a lot of spaces of technology, like it really is duos that make things happen. Like a engineer and a designer together, if they have good chemistry, unbeatable. So many great products are like one engineer, one designer who just like have great chemistry. You know, I have a core partner in Meta Label, a creative director, Ilya, and he and I, the two of us together are a person that just works together very naturally, and just things come out that wouldn't happen if it were either of us individually. And those sorts of surprises are wonderful and excellent. Now the challenge is finding your people is really hard, and finding the right people, it's difficult. Uh, Everything you feel in your gut when you first meet someone is correct. The smallest doubt or thing that you don't think is a big deal, it's going to be everything, and it's why the relationship will end maybe in 4 years. But it's going to be that thing that you saw that first day. And a lot of how I think about people I work with is, do I feel more energetic afterwards? Do they, yeah, does it feel like positive, generative, energizing, or does it feel heavy and like slow and like um but I'm right now very ambitiously doing multiple projects at once, and in each one there's a group of roughly 3 core collaborators who I can trust because we've done things together, and as a result all those projects are great.
Yeah.
you know and I can be someone that has my fingers in multiple things because in each of those there's just partners who I trust. And so your capacity increases. And but there's a lot, it's certainly not easy. I mean, this is all like many failed experiments to be in this experiment that's working well at this moment.
Yeah. And um, talking about these experiments, tell us a little bit about A Corps, and so explorers can understand and maybe think a little bit more about this and how this could be a reality in their countries, because you are working
Yeah. Yeah.
in
So
the
I
US. But
in so like the greatest benefits of capitalism are like collective wealth creation. Like you get stock in a company, you make money from work you didn't do. And this is not possible for creative people. Creative people sell a thing, they get paid for the thing, that's it. It's very hard for creative people to make a real living. There's all sorts of challenges they face. They're like way more likely to be a gig worker, below the poverty line, not have health care, all sorts of things. And one of the challenges for creative people is actually a legal structure where if you think of an artist or musician, they're going to create like an LLC, like a very basic business to help them take in money and get some good taxes. Um, Maybe they have to be a nonprofit if they're trying to take money from grants or things like that. Uh, but none of those allow for upside. None of those allow, like, understand the different types of money that artists make. Subscription money, patronage money, selling things, also owning intellectual property, royalties, and um, and so they're just a strange type of business that doesn't fit in the world as we have it today. And so I started thinking about, because of my experience with public benefit corporations, that it's possible to create innovation just through a legal form. And so have designed a law, that we're trying to pass to make an artist corporation an A Corp, which would be something you could create, through your government or online. That is a type of company in between a nonprofit and a for-profit, reserved for artists, allows you to easily take in lots of different types of money, and allows you to create shares and equity and take investment and be treated as a proper business. Right now in America, the only type of business that can issue shares are C corporations, giant companies that are taxed twice, that have boards of directors, all sorts of overhead that is impractical for an artist. But artists and creative people, their intellectual property has value, is investable. People treat it that way, but they cannot participate. So it's a form that's going to create shares and investing for artists and creative people. It's going to get them healthcare, and it's going to make it easier for them to receive money and like operate as a business. And so we're going to try to pass laws and build a movement. And yeah, I've been working on that for the past year.
I think it's a revolution. So, yeah, good luck because we will be following it. It's really inspiring, and I think it's a game changer for sure. So I'm going to read. We have like yeah, 5 more minutes before we switch to the second part of this meeting. It's more private and it's with a group of explorers that won this private talk. And I have a lot of questions, Yancey. You can believe it, but it's always the same at the beginning of this program. And explorers are really concerned about normally how to get money from investors, and we'd like to tell them at this point that this is not the only way, but maybe if they, they are obsessed. They are obsessed. They are at the very beginning of
Yeah,
the projects. And because of what we were talking before about this narrative and, what they are surrounded about, they are always thinking about investing, coming from investors and how,
yeah.
all the things around that. So please, what's any advice or tip about this for them?
Well, everything is emotional. Again, everything is emotional. Um, you can have the right numbers and all that, but it's about, does the story feel right? Do they believe it? Um, it's very emotional. Um, you really have to, there's a lot of like social leverage. Like, uh, if you get one person to commit, even a, $10,000 check, but it's a person committed, yeah, you leverage that. You use that in other conversations to say, Patricia just agreed to 10K, and you use those. You have to use those things. Um, the For most investors, the like there's just so many different choices coming their way of what to put money into. And so a lot of what you have to solve for is like, why me? Why now? Why this investor? Why now? Why this investor is normally about you're making something that aligns with their thesis. You follow what they put money into, you know what the firm's about, and you can specifically speak to that, which is like what your email to them should say, or like what you should emphasize in your story. You believe in the private internet, well, I'm making this. You believe in this, I'm making that, and so you make sure that's happening. Um, and then why now is important because especially the moment of like uh, market turbulence, uncertainty, all of that sort of stuff. Every investor, the first instinct is, hey, just wait. I can just wait. This is like I can find out whether this kid does anything. I don't have to make a decision right now. I could like let them work their ass off for 6 more months, and I don't even say I don't make any decision. I have every incentive to do that because there's no risk in that. And so you have to create a story about now. Now, a lesson I learned from people in Hollywood that is like the number one rule in Hollywood, which is that you sell your next project right before your current one comes out. So if you have a milestone coming, say, hey, this October, we're releasing the V2 of our product, and it's going to do all these things, and it's so exciting. And we're lining up these partners. It's so exciting. Then like the 6 to 9 weeks leading up to that moment is when you should be fundraising. And you fundraise around that story and around that moment. And you're saying, hey, we want to secure this ahead of that because we believe that on the other side, we're going to need more opportunity. We're going to have opportunity. We're going to whatever. But in those moments, people look at your promise and they dream on your promise and they think, wow, this next movie for them, this might be the one that makes them a star. Like this might be the best deal I ever get, the best opportunity, the best price I ever get with this person. Yeah, it just leans them to, I need to act and make a decision because I might miss out. And so that to me, the conversations are so different when you have that sort of forcing function and you can make it up. You can manufacture it. But that I think really helps because as an investor, what do you look a good idea, interesting team, momentum. And momentum can even just be, hey, there's something exciting that's about to happen. That can be enough for momentum. So I would use that emotional energy because this is all an emotional process. That's what makes the person think, wow, this might be, maybe this is that rare opportunity. Maybe I'm seeing the thing, maybe I'm seeing Chat GPT before the world does, and you want to tap into that possibility because that's why those people are even do this is to get that shot. And so if you look and feel and play the part, like they're hoping to meet that person. That's like they would love for the rando to blow them away. They would love for that, um, so those are all like energies and forces that I think you can use. And then any bite you get, you leverage with someone else. You're always leveraging, always leveraging. They said they'll do it. Okay. And ultimately nothing moves until you have your lead, the main person. The main person, if you get the main person first, everything else is easy. More often you get small fish, you leverage them into the main, and then more people come in. Like that's more what happens if it works out for you, I think.
Yeah, and I think you have to listen a lot, to pay attention to people, to have like a deep interest in the others, not only talking about your product or your project. So you need to take care and yeah, have a different approach. Yancey, I will keep on going, more hours, listening to you and all your wisdom. This is amazing But we have a commitment with a group of explorers right now after this amazing conversation. So thank you very much for this time. Explorers, thanks for being there. Pay attention to the things that Yancey and their teams and partners are doing, because it's really interesting, because you can learn a lot from them. And yeah, good luck with these weeks. We will see you again. We will have the opportunity to talk and to meet more. So thank you, Yancey. See you now after this, okay? Thank you, explorers. Bye.